tirelessly campaigns against a custom many cultures consider commonplace, others contemptible. Before we take a quick look at Julia Lalla-Maharajh's work, we must warn you that you may find some of the images used and the themes described in this report disturbing. It's a practice most of the world finds absolutely repulsive. But for millions of girls, mainly in Africa and the Arab world, it's a rite of passage. A way to protect their family's honour. Female genital mutilation, commonly known as FGM, is an ancient custom, often tied to religious and social acceptance. And now Julia Lalla-Maharajh is bringing it to the attention of leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos. She was one of hundreds to participate in a contest via YouTube, inviting young activists to have their voice heard. Her winning video submission starts off with a simple question.
I want you to imagine 44 minutes and what you could do in that time. How much pain could you experience? It takes 44 minutes for a struggling little girl to be held down. It takes 44 minutes for a rusty razor blade or a shard of glass to cut out her clitoris and her labia.
It's an issue that evokes both disgust and defensiveness, making Julia Lalla-Maharajh our connector of the day. Tradition then, or torture? This topic has caused quite a debate on our website, with loads of you leaving your questions for tonight's Connector. Earlier I spoke to Julia from the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland. I began by asking her how she got involved in this cause in the first place.
Last year I went out to Ethiopia as a volunteer, and I was working on an education programme. But one of the things I really noticed was how difficult women's lives were. But it was more than that. It was that they seemed just so downtrodden. They seemed to have so much in their lives they had to cope with. And I started investigating, and eventually a woman took me aside after a few weeks and said, look, the thing no one's going to tell you is that these women have been cut. And it was a euphemism. It didn't mean anything to me. And I explored a bit more, and that's when I discovered the extent and the difficulty of female genital mutilation.
And it's a world away from where you are now. Why are you in Davos? What are you hoping to achieve there? Who's going to listen, and what can they do?
Well, my belief is that issues like this can't stay on the margins, that they really have to be debated at the highest levels. This is really a global issue. There are 20,000 girls at risk in the UK. It happens all across Europe. So it's not just something that happens elsewhere.
Yeah, as you say, it happens around the world. Lee has a question. He's one of many viewers who points out that the Quran doesn't say anything about mutilation like this. So why do you think it's prevalent in many parts of the Arab world and associated with religion often?
The root cause of female genital mutilation is controlling women. And what's happened over the centuries is that religion has, unfortunately, taken this issue on board. So even to this day, a lot of imams do preach that it is in the Quran, because sadly we still see so many women oppressed in society, and any tools that society can have to keep them there are in fact used.
Danny says, though, in a lot of what he's read, people who actually practice FGM don't want it banned or disagree with it. Have you found that to be the case? How do you explain that?
It's like anything that is deeply entrenched in society. The reason FGM happens is because girls can then be married. If a girl isn't cut, she won't be married. And in fact, being unmarried in some of these societies is a greater risk than going through FGM. So yes, what's needed is education at a very, very community level, so that people begin to understand that they have choices.
Ifini has a different take on this. Points out that women around the world have certain operations in this area, and says, shouldn't the emphasis be more on hygienic conditions under which it's done?
That is a very, very difficult road to tread. Once this starts being medicalised, it becomes entrenched in the medical world, and then it will be even harder to tackle at its root cause. It's not an issue of hygiene. It really has to be tackled as an issue of women being in control of their own bodies and being empowered in their own way. There's no way to do this as a safe operation. It simply shouldn't be happening.
Fred tries to bring in a male parallel here. He says, should male circumcision be outlawed too?
There are some very strong lobbies for male circumcision and against male circumcision. To be honest, they come from such different causes that really we shouldn't even be debating them in the same breath. Female genital mutilation is about controlling women and using their bodies and their sexuality to do that. I don't believe male circumcision is about the same thing.